1.5 million Americans have filed for unemployment in recent weeks. In California, the unemployment rate has reached 16.3% in May. And we've learned this as San Francisco's mayor says that the next round of businesses that were set to reopen now have to wait longer because of rising coronavirus cases. A lot of people here in California have had a hard time navigating the Employment Development Department's website to get paid during this pandemic. So joining me now is Jamie Johnson. She's a Californian who navigated that process and is here to talk about some of the challenges. Hello, Jamie.
Hi, Ella. Thank you so much for doing this. There's a lot of people. I'm hoping to give some information and impart my experience so I can be helpful.
It sounds like you've done a lot of research. You even called this a spirit-breaking process, resorting to credit cards to get by while waiting for EDD money and relying on the help of a friend for a place to stay. I'm sure you're not alone. So can you tell me a little bit more about this time that you've had to navigate?
Certainly. So we're in the end of June. I have been navigating this process since the beginning of April. I filed my first claim in April when a friend explained to me that I could be eligible because I'm self-employed. So I filed a claim, and what they call a UI claim, which is unemployment claim, and I did that early April, and shortly thereafter was accepted and then received a letter that I was denied. Then I became aware of another program that was offered specifically for people that have their own businesses. It's called the PUA, PUA. So I filed for that, but because I was already in their system as a denied claim, I was waiting for probably about a month and a half before I discovered that they did not have record of me in the system. So I was in this holding pattern, and then that began a whole journey, which I think we'll get into.
That sounds stressful to say the least, and I've heard from some people who had actually a pretty straightforward experience filing for unemployment benefits, but they had a W-2, they worked for somebody else, they were let go, and this was their first time applying. So your experience was different as somebody who had their own consulting company and has filed in the past. So tell me how you think that those things might have made your process more challenging.
Certainly. Well, I was understanding, I had kind of a good pulse on the fact that EDD was overwhelmed. And during this time frame, I was started to realize I may have an issue when it was way past the time. On the website, it said 10 weeks up to maybe a month. So I was well after that. And at that point, I had been emailing the system through my online portal pretty much on a daily, weekly basis. And I went as far as to send a certified letter in the mail with my tax returns in hopes to try to reach someone. So I started to investigate a little bit. I wasn't sure. I had heard from other people, maybe I was lost in the system. So I started to do some research online. And at that stage, I had only found one other story that had been covered about a woman that had been waiting for, I think, 2 months at that period. So I had already been on the EDD website and kind of exhausted the information I could find on my own and was on there, and I was having a lot of trouble getting through to their phone lines, which was extremely frustrating because they have two main lines and one references to call the other and then it hangs up on you. So I went in through another attempt to try to reach the EDD through their Facebook page. And that's when I discovered a couple other websites that non-EDD organizations had put together to try to help people. And that's when I saw that there were a lot of people suffering. And I did reference there's two Facebook pages and groups that for anyone having trouble, I would love for them to know about. The one that has been most useful is called Unofficial California Unemployment Help. So you can find that by searching that in Facebook. And this is a group of non-EDD people that have really organized the site well. They've also created another website called FAQCAUI.com. And I think you're going to probably reference this later and maybe even post in the article, but I do highly suggest that anyone having trouble reach those two sites. They've developed a forum with categories so that you can find and follow specific scenarios that apply to you. And most useful was some phone hacks that they had created where they actually went through the automated systems and they did this in a live recording explaining what prompts you need to select so that A, you know if you're even in the queue, otherwise you just are hung up on. And then they broke down the sequence of prompts that you need to select in order to get a live human on the phone. So after about 2 months of waiting on my own, I started that process, and I took this is a week where I spent literally morning and night as a full-time job trying to get answers and calling the EDD. So it was through using those phone tips and multiple hacks and multiple attempts that I finally was able to reach someone on the phone. So that process, I probably waited a couple hours on the phone, and that's when I became aware that I wasn't waiting because the EDD was overwhelmed. I was waiting because I was lost in the system. And that's what I wanted to know. So I was lost in the system. And then I understood that because I had a unique scenario, I needed to speak with the PUA specialist. So that process took a week when I finally had a breakthrough. And I was able to have a specialist push through my claim, and then I was paid 2 days later. So now, fast forward 3 weeks, and it's been time for me to certify my claims. And I've discovered that, and I wasn't getting my money. So this past Friday, I went through the process again using the phone tips and hacks to reach another person who expressed to me that I might be rolling into a new program called the PEUC. And so for me and others that you'll see in some of these Facebook groups, there are problems and scenarios that are coming up all along the way. And I understand that the governor is bringing more aid and resource to the EDD, which is hopeful. At the beginning of this process, I wasn't sure that they were doing that. So I think they've hired on 1,000 new employees. The employees that I've had any conversations with have been very kind and knowledgeable and empathetic. So once you get a live human on the phone, that is the course to take. Emailing and mailing is not going to serve you. You have to speak with a live human if you're in any type of holding pattern.
And phone lines have been jammed with people who have specific cases trying to get through, just like you, to the EDD. The department has been hiring and training more call center employees. Tell me again why the EDD website just wasn't enough of a resource, so you ended up looking for online forums to continue trying to call the call center until you got an answer.
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of good information on their site, but there are specific scenarios that come up where you have questions. And particularly if you weren't able to get somebody on the line and you didn't, I think without these hacks, you're going to be left frustrated. You're not going to have any success. So it was through an investigative search when I couldn't find my answers, because it's the website specifies the program and the eligibility requirements. But like life, there's lots of, well, what if this, and different scenarios, and you don't exactly understand how you may or may not apply. And now they're rolling out so many different programs in response to trying to help Californians that you may be eligible for one program and then another. So questions arise. And what I love, and I was on Facebook attempting to reach the EDD when I discovered this other organized site, and they are grouping things specifically by different programs and discussion points. And then you can get in there and start a dialogue and ask questions with other members. And most of my answers are coming through other people that have a matched experience. So you're kind of just out in community. There are many people out there suffering, and as I mentioned before, it's spirit breaking. Some have lost hope, others are encouraging people, and there's stories of people that are having success encouraging those that are still lost in the system. And so I encourage those to get into this community on the Facebook. Find your area where you may have a question, which is really well organized here on the site, and then reach out to others, read the different comments, and find somebody who's applicate or whose situation is applicable to your own and ask them. This is where you're finding your answers. Then it's great because you've done your research. So when you do get the EDD, your questions can be pointed, and it keeps their phone systems and keeps them open to helping others. But it does require some investigating on your own, and it requires work. You're working for this.
To earn that money. And it sounds like the EDD is evolving with the pandemic to accommodate these specific cases, and they're adding on new programs like you mentioned. So applicants have to learn to navigate that as well. Jamie, what would you like to see done to better streamline this already stressful process for people out there like yourself?
Yeah, so so about a month ago, when I was sort of starting this investigative process of my own, I realized I did need to take the bull by the horns. I mean, just sitting around waiting is not going to help your situation. So you really have to be active in the change. I'm encouraged now that I've learned in this last month that the EDD is calling in resource. When I was at my lowest point of frustration, and as I mentioned, I have moved. My income stopped at the onset of this virus. I'm pivoting my business, which is going to take time. I have to reinvent myself, and we've had so many crises that have unfolded even since the coronavirus. So I'm really feeling the suffering of many people. I'm encouraged to see. I reached out to Governor Newsom's office and the senator, which I did hear back from Nancy Skinner's office. So that's what I think. I CC'd you, and that's how this interview's begun. So I was very pleased to see that there's some activity happening and they're responding. I do understand that they are bringing in new programs and resources for the EDD. So my intention for reaching out was to help others, uh, encourage people to stick in. Once you can get a person on the phone, they can help you. Just be really tenacious about it, and you will have your monies once your situation, once you have a breakthrough, they will retroact all of those monies to you. So even though you have bills and things coming through, and it's very frustrating, keep at it, because it will provide hope. And it seems the governor's office is are looking at more extension programs. There's a new federal program extension that has just launched called PED that I'm learning about now, that's hopefully helping those that their benefits have exhausted, continuing those on, because I don't think we're looking to have any kind of solution to the virus until maybe next year. So there's a lot of people that need income well into probably the new year. So just encouraging the governor to continue to support the EDD, and for those that are having issues, get into these Facebook groups and get into community with other people and keep at it.
Well, Jamie,
That's
thank you
my
so much for sharing your research. It sounds like you fell through this rabbit hole of a process, and you've come out at least being able to educate others in how to navigate it. And not just patients, but it looks like people need to be resourceful and keep afloat while they wait for that paycheck. So thank you so much, Jamie Johnson, for sharing your experience with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the reply and the follow through. I really appreciate you sharing this story with others.
And so once again, if you have yet to file for unemployment, the website is edd.ca.gov. Last I spoke with their representatives, they let me know that it tends to slow down between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. That's when most people are on there, so they suggested to get on that site either before or after. You're watching Chronon, the Bay Area streaming news 24/7.